We are live, Andy Shalef. Oh, where's Andy? So Andy right now is in bed. He has a little bit of a fever, and yeah, we decided it's best he stay in bed and recover, and we don't know what he has. So let's send Andy some energy. And today we're going to be discussing a 13-year-old boy who is trying to make a difference in the world when it comes to environmental issues, and we're going to do this on. I can't play that game anymore. A wonderful chaos. So, hello. So today we're going to have Dylan DeHaze and his mother, Dawn. And normally Andy does all the prep work, so I had to actually step into that role today. And they've been busy with a project together called Kids Can Save the Planet. And apparently they've made 4 documentaries and has won 11 awards, so it's pretty big. And we're going to be discussing this on the show. And I'm trying to tune into myself in terms of when it comes to saving the planet. Like, as Andy said yesterday, our generation is probably largely responsible for what we're leaving behind for the next generation. Yeah. So I'm actually getting ready to be educated on this one by a 13-year-old, apparently boy that has a lot of awareness, and we're going to bring them on. Hello, Dylan.
Hello.
Hello, Dawn.
Hi.
So where are we? Where are you located right now?
Right now we're on Lopez Island in Washington, but we live in near Portland right now.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about this? Like, what prompted you at the age of 12 to start making these documentaries?
Well, I mean, it really all started because my mom and I were doing a trip down the West Coast and as a homeschool project, and just walking down the beach, you see all this trash, and the more I saw of it, the more it just scared me to the point of like not even wanting to look at it or not even wanting to go into like an exhibit to see how it's affecting people and animals. And my mom saw how terrified I was of it and said, well, instead of being obviously this really affects you, so instead of being afraid, you should just do something about it. And so since my parents do filming for a living, they thought it would be a great idea, not only for showing me how to film, but also for kind of explaining this in a better way for other kids, to make a documentary series.
Wow. So your parents have really been a big support in this.
Yeah, very.
So when you were sharing that you were looking at all this trash on the beach now, what was going on through your brain in terms of what was triggering the fear?
Just kind of feeling hopeless, like if you kind of feel small, you think, oh, well, I can't do anything because I'm, just a kid. But if kids come together, they can really make change.
I lost you there a little bit. If kids come together, they can really make change, you said, right?
And
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I lost you for a moment. Are we back?
Oh, sorry. We're on this island and the spotty reception.
No worries. We're actually going to cut this down to a podcast. So in the end, we're only going to keep the good bits.
Okay, great.
So Dylan, I was actually also curious. in your mind, what was the worst case scenario you were envisioning when you saw this trash on the beach?
Well, I mean, when I was learning about it, I was just thinking in my head, like, like in my generation, all of this, like all the beauties that we see on Earth could be gone. And not only is it like the plastic, but it's also climate change and political stuff. But um, just seeing all that just as a little kid just really is a frightening thing. But once you start learning about it more and you start understanding it more and learning about the things that you can do, it really opens up your mind to the ways that you can fix it instead of just worrying about the problem.
Thank you. We have Andy, the co-host, and from bed he's saying Dylan does not sounds like he's already an adult. He doesn't sound like a little kid anymore. I have
Oh, yeah.
that same impression. And he's also asking, what is your greatest hope for your projects?
Well, I'm just hoping that it affects people and, makes them think, even just in their daily life, just, oh, well, if I could just throw this thing away, or, I could recycle it, or I could reuse it, or I could do anything. It could be, as long as it makes people think, then I think that what we've done has been successful.
I actually, now as we're talking, I kind of wish I have seen at least one of your documentaries because of like just to get a feel for what kind of impact we're talking about here. Maybe after the show, are there any links you can share with us here in the comments?
Yeah, I think we can get you a link. Yeah.
Perfect. Andy is now asking, how has your life changed?
Well, it's definitely broadened my knowledge a lot of, all of this. And it's also gotten me into, it's also got me connections with a lot of really interesting and cool people in this subject, scientists and whatnot, politicians. And um, just the experience of producing these and being able to talk to these people and learn has been really cool.
And do you experience that they take you seriously as a 13-year-old, or are they just like, what's your feeling when you're talking to a politician or a scientist of a high caliber, let's say?
Well, I mean, obviously, if they saw, like, back when we started filming, when I was 12, it's like probably wouldn't like it, since I had my mom with me, it was kind of took more seriously. But I'm 17 now, so but over the course of filming, I feel like people have gotten.
We've lost you again, Dylan.
More seriously on the topic.
Can I ask you to repeat that because we lost the connection?
Sorry, I think my phone got a alert and it screwed it up. Like when we started filming, when I was 12.
Yeah.
At least I think it was mainly because my mom was there that they took us really more seriously. But over the course of filming, I'm 17 now, but the more that people kind of got aware of what we were doing, the more people kind of felt, more comfortable talking and more, they kind of trusted us more.
Wonderful. I put as a backdrop, like I was thinking, what should I use as a backdrop? And then I was thinking of the idea that Elon Musk wants to take us to Mars, while the Earth is becoming Mars and make Mars Earth. And I was looking at this picture, and it really, I felt so much sadness that this could be the future of Earth. And as Andy says here, helplessness is a big deal. How is it for you to see the politics in the US at the moment?
Well, the politics are, I mean, just kind of I don't know. How would you say that, Mom?
It's a clown show.
But
I think we all agree it's a clown show. Right?
Personally, I'm not even following it because I already don't want to put time into it.
I envy you. I envy you. It was very difficult to watch the debate because it wasn't a debate. It was
like toddlers fighting.
It was like toddlers fighting. It was embarrassing. So I'm glad you missed that.
Yeah, Andy is again in the comments saying it can't be easy, and it sounds like that also.
Yeah.
We have also another one of our regular guests, Bulelang, and he's saying the feeling of being overwhelmed happens for adults too, and we need to approach it as a group. How many people would you say are actually supporting your journey right now? Or is it just you and your parents, or do you have a team?
Well, it's just me and my parents for producing, but I'm hoping that eventually with...
We have Moby and Ed Begley Jr.
Well, yeah, we have a couple supporters. We have Moby and Ed Begley, but I'm hoping, like, you know, because it's not all about our films. It's really about the greater kind of motion of everybody, and the more people that our films influence and other films influence, the more change that it'll do, and hopefully the more everybody, like the more conscious everybody hopefully on earth will be of this problem and be taking the steps to do it and to fix it.
Yeah. When COVID came to hit the planet, right? I'm someone that swims in the Amsterdam canals during the winter time, and I remember in the winter I used to come out of the canal and my skin was so dirty, like I'd wipe it down. It'd be disgusting. And during COVID, I just saw that I would come out of the water and my skin was getting really clean. And all of a sudden, in Holland right now, it's the first time I can see the stars in the sky. So, did you experience any apparent changes on your part of the world through the COVID and people not being able to go out there and over consume and trash?
Well, I haven't really seen a change like that. Mainly just everybody being stir crazy in home. But, you know, with the wildfires that have been going on in California, Oregon, Washington, all across the coast, it's really strange to see because, you know, our house down in Portland, we actually had to leave and go north just because the air quality was so bad. So it's kind of worrying to think that, you know, that could be, you know, like every summer you have to leave because there's a fire or something, or I don't know. But it is quite COVID made it worse because just everybody's already all, it just makes everything kind of harder in general, just puts a damper on everything.
Okay, when you say COVID make it worse, I wasn't quite clear as the reason. Just makes people more crazy, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what next? A flood? You know, like we've got COVID where we can't go anywhere, and then there's so many fires we couldn't even really see anything outside. And we were just like, is this the end of the world? You know?
Wow, that's a completely different experience than one we had here in the Netherlands.
Well, now the West Coast, really the entire West Coast just goes up in flames. And that's, you know, normal to a certain degree, but it's a lot worse it's increasingly getting worse because of climate change. And so that's why Dylan was saying, like, is this the new norm where we have to leave our homes because of the smoke? Maybe our home doesn't burn down, but the whole place is just, the air quality is so bad that you can't go outside. And so it's just better not to be there,
Wow, when I hear you speak, I just take a deep breath in, and I feel that helplessness with you right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's something people aren't tying a lot to climate change. We do talk about that in the second film called Tipping Point, which is about climate change, about the fires around the world. But it wasn't that bad yet here, and now it is. So I don't know if you've heard about the fires, but it's really
I've heard about them, and again, because I'm not really looking at the news, I don't get the visuals.
okay. Yeah, it's been really rough.
We have Bullang again, which says, our canal here where I stay. Bullang is in South Africa. Where I stay passes through the industrial area before it passes our suburb. I can't imagine myself dipping my foot in it. The water does not look like water. Yeah. I hear you, Bullang.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do feel that, it's not everybody, like, some people don't have as much as other people. And I'm very grateful to be, being able to live in the United States and have access to fresh water. And in other areas of the world, even they don't even have access to fresh water, as they were saying,
Yeah.
And just COVID and climate change just will make that worse, and pollution will make that worse, tenfold.
Wow. I've here in Europe, I experienced it completely different than the way you guys have experienced it, and it just blows my mind, actually. Yeah. So you've been filming. You've done four documentaries in 4 years. Is that correct now, or
Yeah.
7 years? And four. And have these documentaries? Have you seen them impacting other initiatives around the world in the community?
Well, certainly in our wherever we go, it does. Like when we were living on Orcas Island, we got a chance to really go and teach the kids, like, how to do a recycling audit, how to do a trash audit, organize beach cleanups, helped gather, data for, there's like a university study going on plastics. And so they needed samples from different beaches. So we help things like that. And we do, there are politicians in these films that are actively working and using the films to educate. And so I haven't really circled back to see exactly if things have changed, but I know that it's certainly in the conversation. The second film, Tipping Point, premiered at like the #1 climate change research center in the world, which is in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. It was called the Woods Hole Research Center, but I think it's called I forget what it's called now. They changed the name. Anyway, so it premiered there. And so, that's a big deal that they thought the film was that great that they wanted it premiered there and flew us out there to talk with those scientists and people in the community.
Andy has some pretty nice questions here. And I was also going to ask you, what is a recycling audit?
Oh, okay. So actually we have videos on our Facebook page. Kids Can Save the Planet Facebook page. There are videos on how to do a lot of these things that Dylan has made, starring Dylan. Everything stars Dylan. But basically, you go. Let's say you have a bag of plastic recycling, and you're like, okay. The goal is to see how you can reduce your consumption. So you go through the bag of plastic, and you go, okay, well, here's, this thing that I can actually go, instead of buying a plastic container, I can go and use a reusable and go to the bulk bin, and get that way instead. And so you just analyze your buying habits, and then you make changes. It could be one change each time, but you just make changes to reduce what you're recycling. Because really, I don't think I get different information on this all the time, but I really don't think that a lot of the plastic in the world is being recycled. I think it's like less percent.
I've heard that. Yeah.
So does that make sense? It's a reduction.
Yeah.
Plan,
so it's actually heightening awareness around what you're using and how you can reduce it further by, as you said, instead of going and buying a plastic dishwasher bottle every time, you can buy a bulk thing, right?
Correct. Yeah. And we have another thing on how to reduce plastic just around your house. Instead of buying sponges, you buy a cotton rag and use the rag that you can wash and reuse. It's healthier that way anyway. And just things like, instead of saran wrap, we call it saran wrap, cling film. Instead of cling film, you use like wax.
The beeswax material.
The wax wraps, they call them. And those are reusable for a year. And you can easily make them yourself.
Wow.
So, every step counts. Every change is important.
So before Dylan was walking on the beach at the age of 12 and you felt his impact, how were you guys living and what changed?
Oh man. Yeah. It's funny. The more the more choices you realize you have. And so it just opens up more doors and more doors of information.
Yeah.
And so, by going around the United States filming all these films, we have changed a lot in our awareness and in our habits, and in our activism. Like right now, I'm going back to graduate school for a degree in social work because I really want to work on the macro level of change, meaning policy. And having been a counselor in the past as well, I see, I had the boots on the ground experience, and I think being able to use all the experience that we have in changing policy will be powerful when you have a degree in doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. How do you get, Andy Shalef has another comment here. How do you get your funding for these projects?
We're self-funded.
Self-funded, wow.
Yeah, that's why we don't have a big team. We bought Dylan for his a Christmas gift. We bought him a really nice camera, and so it's not sophisticated equipment, but it gets the job done. It's fine,
Yeah. Dylan, are you optimistic about how things are moving?
Yeah, I think a lot of people across the world are really getting more in touch with reality instead of living in their like imaginary world of oh, everything is self-replenishing, oh, the stores are self-replenishing, it's always going to be full, when in reality it could be there could be no food. There could be, instead of being able to go to a nice clean beach, it could be full of trash. Instead of being able to live in your house, you could be, kicked, having to live underground in a bunker or something.
Yeah.
But a lot of people across the world are kind of waking up, and I think that's a really good thing.
But do you actually think that things can turn around? Like, what is your vision?
Well, we're kind of at a point where if we don't do something right now, like serious change right now, we could see a lot of long-lasting impacts. But so yeah, as my mom said just now, voting's really important. We
Yeah.
need to get people, leaders in our government that can really make a lot of change. But not only that, but we need all the people everywhere to be making decisions in their life to, try and curb the amount of trash we use or amount of emissions we put out. But yes, we very much can change. Humans are, that's that's what we do best is change. So I think
Uh,
we can.
yeah, I have something on that point. I mean, we had COVID, right? And the way I experienced people around me was as soon as the government said, "Oh, it's okay now," the measures got a bit loose, and I just saw people throwing like in Holland, it was like nothing happened, and the cases have been rising, and it's like it just sometimes feels like the government has to say, "Okay, lockdown, everyone stays home from now on." Like you're gonna get a fine if you don't wear a mask. Like we didn't have these regulations, and it sometimes feels like someone up in power has to like look down and say, "This is how it's going to be from now on," or else there isn't going to be any change. And then when I translate that specific behavior when it comes to climate change, it's scary.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of, as I said earlier, kind of just living in a fantasy of thinking, oh, I can just, it doesn't impact me. As soon as it's in the trash, it's not my problem anymore. Um, and then I think once they see the effects that it's really having on our environment, or climate change is having on our environment, I think they can do it. But also, I think we really need a kickstart from our governments to really snap people back into reality and say, this is what is happening. You need to change now, or we're all gonna die.
Change now, or we're all gonna die. Yeah.
Well, I have a good example of a scenario. We did a screening, and this was in Massachusetts, which is a very progressive state in the United States. We did a screening over there at a church. It was a Unity church, very progressive. And after the screening, they said, "Oh, come down and have some food with us." And so we went down to their community area, and everything was plastic and disposable plates, right?
Yeah.
We're like, we just played the film. Like, how? And you're giving us this, And I said, one thing you could do right now is use, you have a full kitchen down here. Is use reusable plates and silverware. And the lady who was elderly said, "Oh no, we can't do that." I'm like, okay, so why are we here? Because
Wow.
yeah, it's one thing to say it, but you have to do it, right? And so I think the older generation, my point is that a lot of the older, and I'm not going to say all, but that's not true, but a lot of the older generation just got used to that plastic culture, that disposable culture. And we just have to stop thinking that way.
I have to think of my mother, like, and I'm from Cyprus, and I think most of the people in my country, if they don't have a contrast, you might tell them to you're blue in the face, but it like, "Mom, she had cancer. Dairy products, like non-organic meat, if you want to eat meat, it's not good for, like, it's probably creating more inflammation. Never listened.
Yeah.
So she really had to get super sick before she allowed herself to stop eating certain things. And so
Did
she
it
had
help
that.
her?
Pardon?
Did it help her?
Right now she's good. She got operated, and the cancer is. They're gonna do another check in 10 years to see if it's gonna grow again, right? It was in the womb,
Oh, that's
but
terrible.
for sure it did have a change on her, but that's because her life was on the line.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, in your movies, do you actually film things which can create an impact also? Not only educational, but this is the world we're living in right now.
Oh, I'm trying to think about your question, but I'm having a hard time answering it for some reason. Can you rephrase it?
Yeah. You guys are on the front line. So, what I've heard in the beginning, you travel the world,
Mainly the United States.
but only the main part of the U.S., not.
The films have gone without us around the world. We've been invited, but like I said, we don't have a budget, so we couldn't go to those screenings that were outside the United States. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, did you get to witness or experience Mother Nature in a way that you're like, wow, this is really, really bad, like much worse than the beach that you walked on when Dylan was 12?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, have we been able to go like to Asia and stuff where it's a lot worse, or sail through the garbage patches in the world? No, unfortunately, it was all anecdotal, and footage that we got off, off the
Well,
internet.
well, I think we should look at our own backyard before we go all the way to Asia, right?
Yeah, there was enough footage here, and
Yeah, exactly.
and everything connects. That's another name of one of the films. We talk about everything connects. The ocean connects us all. So don't think that just one person doing one thing in the world doesn't affect other people. We're all connected, and we
Hmm.
have to stop thinking that we're not.
Yeah, we're definitely like the loop. You throw garbage in the sea, the fish eat it, we eat the fish, and we get it back in our body systems, right?
Exactly what we say in the film. Yeah, exactly.
Andy Shalev is saying, how does it have to be? Why does it have to be so drastic for us to make a change?
Because humans. First of all, governmental change takes a long time, and unless there's like a disaster, the wheels of government and change do take a long time. The Paris Accords and the Paris Agreement and all that is important. Now we're not part of that, which is dumb. But those types of decisions where the world is united in doing this is what needs to happen.
Yeah. When you say
Our
we,
country,
you mean the U.S.
yeah, we're going backwards, which is unacceptable.
Yeah. I have another comment from Andy that says, I spent a day cleaning plastic from a beach in Indonesia, and it did not put a dent in it. I think
Yeah.
he means it didn't make any difference.
When we were in where were we? Baltimore, Maryland, they have this machine at the mouth of a river that empties into the bay there, and it takes all the plastic out of the water as it comes down. And obviously they need that to a huge degree in these sort of third world countries where they can't afford to or they don't even have access to dealing with their trash, right? And so
Yeah.
it just ends up in the rivers and ultimately into the ocean, and then it's affecting all of us. So we can't pretend like we're not connected and, oh, that's happening over there and not affecting us. We need to help those countries that, for whatever reason, aren't able to deal with that correctly, so it doesn't affect the rest of us, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're trying, and it's just such a huge, monumental task. But I think starting with where the rivers come out into the ocean and getting it right then, right now, should be the first thing to do, you know?
Yeah. And he's commenting again, Indonesia is much worse from his experience. And he also commented, I was under the impression that there are 4 rivers that account for 70% of plastic in the ocean. Is that right?
Wow.
Sorry, can you say that again? Or
It's it's on the screen. I was under the impression that there are 4 rivers that account for 70% of the plastic in the ocean.
Yeah, so see, that's where you need to make sure it's not getting out into the ocean, right there, right at that mouth of those rivers, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why that's not happening. Does Andy know that?
So, and if you heard that, let us know.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about plastic, but there are alternatives to plastic right now, but we're still manufacturing them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll see on Facebook spiritual gatherings where they're pretty conscious and they're eating and they're recycling, but then I see a plastic bottle of water on the table along with a nice setup, and it just blows my mind sometimes.
Well, here's the thing that people need to think about. Like, plastic, you can only recycle so many times. I think the nicest plastic, I think, is 7 times. Don't quote me, but it's something like that. It's not infinite, but glass is infinite. You can recycle glass over and over and over. So choose glass, you know?
Choose glass, and they're now also putting some kind of gel outside of the glass bottles. I have no idea. I didn't get a chance to research what's the story with this material to protect the glass, of course.
What? I haven't.
It's like a silicone material to protect the glass from breaking. So if you have a water bottle, it's a long-lasting.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that's a reusable scenario. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we use metal for that because that lasts longer.
It sounds like you have a
Right.
lot of resources. I've never heard of metal with glass bottles. So
Oh,
can
no,
you?
no. We use metal bottles for carrying
Okay,
water. Sorry.
okay, good. Bulelang again. People are short-sighted. They only deal with what is happening currently. They're not good in preventive actions. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, if you think about our culture over here and in Europe, it's a we have to produce. It's stuff, right? And that's the problem, is the capitalist system is designed on producing things and selling it, and without doing that over and over and over, it's not going to keep going. And so I think the system needs to change so that it's not like that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's systemic change that has to happen, as well as people and their choices on a daily basis.
Another comment: countries are self-centered. They cannot afford waste disposal, so they toss it in the rivers.
Exactly.
Yeah. You were going to say something?
Well, some of these countries also, they burn the plastic to cook their food, which is terrible for your health.
I've a friend of mine right now is in Africa, and she actually said in the village where she's staying most of the inhabitants are eating meat, but they cook it in plastic and aluminum foil, and the meat is just sitting on this stuff while it's being cooked.
Yeah,
And she says that the air, it just smells like burnt tires.
it's yeah. I mean, in another plastic film, I think it was called A Plastic Ocean, they go into great detail on that burning of plastic in different countries. Like, they're just trying to survive however they can. You can't blame them. But
And they also don't know, right? And I'm not sure if that would again make a difference if people know.
if they can't afford anything else, then it won't.
Yeah.
They'll just know why they're getting cancer.
Yeah, exactly. Andy is commenting, and Andy, I hope we don't make you more sick by the things that you're discovering. The friend that's in Africa is a common friend of ours, and we've had her on the show, Yasmine Schreifer. Capitalism is about creating and selling. Agreed, the system certainly needs to change. And change into what?
Sustainable economy, a green economy. I don't know what that looks like. I wish I was
Yeah.
that smart. I'm
I noticed myself having a bit of a empty space in my head, but there's definitely we can't keep going the way we're going.
No, exactly. So yeah, so like we're on an island right now, which is very much into sustainability, and that's when we started making the films. That's where we were living. We had to move back to the city for a year, but now we're moving back into this environment again. Unfortunately, it's these places are sort of few and far between. But yeah, I just think everyone needs to look at the way that they live and talk to each other about it and just keep that conversation going on changes. More
Yeah.
people talk, the more ideas come up, the more you can get together and change things, even in your own little town.
Yeah. I was thinking we had a gentleman called Josh. I forgot his last name. Andy, do you remember his name? His last name? Josh has a company called makesoil.org, and he pretty much goes around and he's educating people on how to make their own soil and grow their own food, and how to recycle and create your own compost, and it's really becoming
Is it
a thing.
Greenfield? Is that his last name? I want to say
Andy put it in the comments, and I'll show it on the screen. It's Witton, Whiton.
that's a different guy then. Yeah, there's another guy doing that as well, and making videos, a lot of videos.
It would be really nice if there was some umbrella where all these initiatives go under, so it's easy to track. Because I think right now it's kind of scattered, right?
Yeah, but like, where are you?
I am in the Netherlands.
Okay, so we talk about the Netherlands in one of our films on sustainability, and we talk about how you guys are doing indoor, vertical gardening.
Yeah, that's because we don't have a lot of space, so we have to.
Yeah, so that's great. I mean, if everyone did that, think how you could grow things in your own community. It doesn't have to be trucked from another country to your country. You know what I mean? Like this is a big deal. And so like that is a really good way. Like we live on an island over here. If we did the same thing that you guys are doing and built one of these facilities, we wouldn't have to rely on the mainland to get a lot of the stuff that we need to survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we're actually looking at a holistic way of living, like from the shoes that we buy, like really everything.
Yeah, but we can do it like not cavemen, like, we can use like all these great technological advances that we've.
Are you still speaking? Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you up to
Sorry.
the cave. I got you up to the caveman, and then the line broke.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said we don't have to live like cavemen. We can use the technological advances that we've made in sustainability to save the planet. So it doesn't have to be depressing. It doesn't have to be like you're missing out on something at all. I mean, we just need to think smarter, and we could still have the things that we have. We just have to do it differently. That's all.
Like, I'm sitting here and I kind of recognize something, and I think it's good to share. I do not live a sustainable life. And I've always had girlfriends who did all the recycling, and like in a way, I don't want to sit here and be a hypocrite, but in a way I've always had the story, and there's a confession that I'm so busy I don't need another thing to add to my life in terms of uh recycling and stuff, and sitting here and just tuning into that behavior that I'm also exhibiting in my own life. And it has to do with the belief that it takes time. This is just another thing that I need to do.
Well, every time you go to the store, you have a choice. You know, you can choose one thing or another, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
really
in terms of consumption, I'm lucky. I don't have to think about that. We have organic supermarkets, and they also have the bulk free departments, and we also have one now which does not use plastic, where there's a plastic free supermarket.
awesome.
So I shop from there. But but if I do need to recycle, it's not something that I do. And what I'm saying is this conversation is actually making me think twice.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I just think for everyone out there, just take a day and look at what you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Just, I know it's hard because, you know, we've made it complicated. We don't have to be this complicated in this world, but we've made it that way. And so I just think actively observing how things are being done, just everyone just needs to do that.
Yeah.
Choices.
Dylan, did you, like, when you stepped onto this journey, it sounds like you stopped being a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, that you invested your time into these projects. Am I right? Like somehow your childhood was stolen from you. Or am I projecting something?
Well, I wouldn't say stolen, but definitely, it's a much more mature subject to be researching and filming and doing, but definitely makes you kind of realize, instead of kind of, just being happy-go-lucky kid, that, you know, you can still do, like, normal kid stuff, but you also have to realize what you're doing and kind of be more mature with what you're just what you're doing in your daily life, really.
He still
Were
plays video games every day.
he what?
I still do a lot of, I still get my childhood in wherever I
Okay,
can.
good. You were going to school, or because I saw Andy making a comment of homeschooling.
Yeah, I was homeschooled and I have my GED now.
What does that mean?
A GED is like the equivalent of a high school diploma. He got that when he was
Okay.
6.
So I know nothing about homeschooling. Does that mean that you are not interacting with other children?
Yeah, it's basically like kind of online learning.
Yeah.
And just kind of like doing everything that a kid would do, but it's also kind of learning, instead of being forced into a curriculum of, like, going to a normal school. You can kind of tailor it to what you really want to learn about. Well, like, so you still get what you need to get done, and learn what you need to learn, but you can also focus and say, oh, well, I want to learn more about plastics or climate change or whatever it is you want to learn. You can devote a lot more time to that than you would if you had to, if you were forced to go to a normal school and go through that and then be able to learn that on the side. You can kind of make it the focus of your schooling while still getting other things that you need to learn done.
And was this a decision that you made with your parents, or how did this decision came about?
Yeah, I was just kind of with my parents, and mainly it was because for when we were filming, we were traveling around going to screenings and obviously filming the documentaries, and it just kind of made more sense to be homeschooled because you're not stuck to having to go to a specific place for a specific amount of time. You can do it anywhere. It's just on a computer, so you can be anywhere in the world and still be able to get it done.
Wow, you were a digital nomad from a very young age. So, in a way, in the future, if you want to make a living, it's very intuitive for you. It sounds where
Yeah,
most people need to figure that out.
yeah.
So you've done 4 documentaries. What's next?
Well, I've been
What's in the pipeline?
I've been thinking about going to a film school, and because just to go there and really learn everything about filming and be able to get really good at it. And so I've been thinking about doing that, and also continuing on with our series and showing it around and trying to get the word out to people about what we're trying to do.
In terms of film school, it sounds like you're learning from 2 experienced professionals. So, what do you think the film school will add to you, or to the things that you want to bring to the world?
Mainly just because I'm not going to be doing documentaries my whole life, so it'll kind of help for any other projects that I have to do. Then I'll have, I can say, oh, I went to so and so film school, and they'll know that you really know what you're doing, because
Right.
accomplished a like a specific school that teaches you all, like, how to film professionally, like from
Wonderful.
step 1 all the way.
And in terms of your endeavor for the environment, is there anything else that's that's in the pipe?
I think the next film will be like about environmental racism, and I think that's a global issue that needs to be addressed, especially as climate change happens. The poorest, most disadvantaged people are going to suffer the most, and that's not fair.
I've never heard those 2 words put together before, environmental racism.
It's kind of a buzzword over here in the United States. But yeah, I mean, the United States is famous for exploiting other cultures.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So we want to really make people aware of how that's happening, and how you don't realize it, but you're contributing to that, so just really make that clear, and also make it clear what exactly is going to happen. If we don't fix these environmental problems to these people, it's going to get a lot worse.
What has been the most frustrating? Like we've been on air now for 55 minutes, and like I noticed I went through different emotions. Like I felt anger, I felt frustrated. Like what has been some of the things that you've been experiencing in your own body as like, oh yeah, we don't curse, but like, like the frustration. We're not cursing because Dylan is 17.
Yeah, he doesn't do that.
Really?
No, of course he does. He's a gamer.
Oh. Well, Andy was quite explicit about no cursing on this show. Normally, it's the F word is used quite a lot. But have there been moments where you came home and you just felt defeated? And what were those moments? What defined those moments?
First, I'm going to say the F word is usually associated around the president of the United States right now, but I'll let Dylan answer that question.
So you're saying what moments kind of have I felt like defeated?
Yeah.
Kind of just seeing what's like knowing what's happening and trying to get people to, wake up. And then, seeing somebody, throw a bottle or like a plastic something into like a bush or something because it can't be bothered to throw it into the trash. It's like 20 feet away. You're like, or seeing people.
And how do you deal with that if you see someone throwing trash in the bush?
Well, you can even just go up to them. I mean, you probably couldn't now because of COVID, but you could just go up to them and be like, hey, like just try and influence them and tell them that it's not a good idea. And then just say, hey, like, because if nobody tells them that it's not that it's a bad, like telling them it's a bad idea to throw it into the bushes instead of throwing it in the trash or anything, then they'll just think they won't think, they'll just keep doing it because nobody's telling them that it's something wrong that they should think about. So
are people positive when you tell them that what they did was not okay, or do they get defensive? Or
well, as good as humans are at changing, we don't like to change. We'd rather just keep living and doing what we're doing no matter what it is. We just like to have things be the way they are and not have to change. But getting past that and being able to look at yourself in the mirror and see what you're doing and that's really hurting the planet, and then doing something about it is the most important thing to do, and to just try and get people to be aware of what, like, the harm that they're doing to the planet, and is like the most important thing.
Thank you. I see in the comments, Dylan, Bulalang is saying he would like to know where to find the documentaries. And Bulalang, we said in the beginning of the show that we'll put the links in the comments. Or you have a Facebook page, and I'm assuming everything is under the Facebook page. Is that correct?
Yeah, and there's also a website, kidscansavetheplanet.com. And the recent film on voting is free. It's on there right now on that website. It's called Political Climate.
I posted the kidscansavetheplanet.com. And Andy Shaleth comes with another. Have you guys seen The Octopus Teacher on Netflix?
No.
I haven't seen it, no.
He says it's a beautiful story. I also haven't seen it. I actually do not have Netflix. Maybe I'm gonna have to borrow his password. I actually avoid watching movies. And Andy says vote.
Yep. Voting is one of the most important things that you can do. As a society, we elect people instead of, if everybody had to vote about every single subject, then we wouldn't get anything done. But since we have representatives, getting the right people that have the right mindset, instead of, thinking everything is disposable. If we get politicians that have the right mindset that will actually do change, is the most important thing we can do. aside from changing things in our own personal life.
And Andy makes one more comment, Dylan. Get back into the Paris Accord, at least that.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've come to the end of our hour. Is there anything, a message that you'd like to leave to me, to the viewers? Any last words?
I'd say just, yeah, people have a lot more power than they think, and never feel like hopeless. Never feel like that you can't do something, because if you really put your mind to it and you do everything you can, if you want to get something done, then you'll do it. But you just have to put your mind to it. That's the most important thing, is to just be mindful and to know what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Dylan, for your wisdom and insights. And I can see how Dawn raised you, and it feels like her energy is coming through you also.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I had a different upbringing, so in a way, my mind cannot really grasp that level of a relationship. Actually, as a parent, it's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
And it's been great having you on the show. So thank you, both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is Dawn still there?
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And have a beautiful, I would say, morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 6 p.m. right now here.
All right. Well, have a good afternoon.
Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Andy is giving his last comment. Andy, thanks for your support in the questions. A lot of love and support from Dawn. I really appreciate you. Even though you're sick, you were able to support this show with your questions. Bullang the same. So, guys, hopefully next week Andy will be alive and kicking with us. I took his seat because it feels like it's a good, empowering seat. So have a beautiful weekend, and we're gonna see you again on another episode on Monday. A wonderful